Right, so let's do it. Today I want to talk about giving ourselves more options, transforming our map of the world. And this comes very much from a philosophy from neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, where there's a lot of talk in NLP about the map is not the territory. And let me just explain what I mean by that, the map not being the territory. We create a map of what we perceive to be reality, right? And this fascinates me because we do so through our beliefs, for our background, for our history, for our perception of what we see, what we don't see, what we feel, what we don't feel. And then we mirror that onto the planet, as it were. And very often, for most people, we get lulled into a false sense of security that is reality, right? We believe our reality is reality and that everyone else should be able to see what we see. But the truth is this, like, our worlds are full of holes and deletions and distortions. And based on our beliefs and our history, we then see the world differently. Based on what we focus on at the time is what we actually perceive around us. What we feel at the time, whether we're warm or we're cold, right, is our creation of reality. And the brain is so powerful that it's figured it out. Look, if it tries to take in all this information, you're going to be really quickly overwhelmed. So it filters stuff out, right? So all we're left with at the end is a smidge of the real reality of what's actually happening around us. And from that little smidge, we then interpret and we move through life as best we can. And one of the greatest realizations that I ever made, and I think it's really important for everyone to try and connect with, is that our reality is just our perceived reality, based on, again, a tiny fraction of all these little inputs that we're drawing from, and then filtered through our brains and our history and our past and all these wonderful things. That gives us our map of the world. The map is not the territory. The saying is the map is not the territory because it's saying that's just the map that we hold right now. But someone else has got a different map of the same territory, and someone else has got a different map of the same territory. No two people have the same map because no two people focus on the same thing, feel the same thing, have had the same past experience. Therefore, we're all running around with these maps of the world, and too many people, myself included, for too long, assumed that my map was right, that I had the right map, and everyone else, I couldn't understand why they behaved the way that they did, because surely if they were looking at my map, like, why would they do that? That doesn't make sense. And then I started to figure out, I get it. It doesn't make sense to me because I've got my map of the world, but to them it makes perfect sense. Even stuff that really upsets you and really frustrates you very often is due to people looking at a different map to you. So one of the first realizations you can make, and was huge for me, is to realize that it's just my perception of reality, right? So instantly that creates a bit of space. So it did two things. Firstly, it allowed me to treat other people with a bit more time and compassion, because I started to realize that often behaviors, what appear to me to be completely wrong behaviors, or why can't they see what I'm seeing, was just down to the fact that they had a different impoverished map very often. People that are often in pain, people that are struggling, people that are behaving in a way that they don't want to behave, it's very often down to the fact that the map that they've got for life, that they've built up over time, and the perceptions that they see, is just not serving them. They don't have the options that they need. So it's a little bit like this. It's a little bit like having a physical map of your local area, but there's holes in the map. You just can't see anything. There's a blur, but you can still sort of navigate through life, but you've got no sort of idea of what's over there. It's one thing. And then you might have other parts of the map that are just incorrect. For example, you might see something that appears like a dead end. And you're like, well, there's no point going that way, right? It's a dead end. But actually, that's a shortcut to where you want to go. Your map's just incorrect. Do you see what I mean? I'm just using this as metaphor just to give you that concept that very often the map that we build up of the world is just full of these distortions, these deletions, and these generalizations that are actually tripping us up. And ultimately, what a good coach, therapist, all of these type of people, thought leaders, influencer, anyone in the world that's out front trying to help people, ultimately, it's about trying to gift you a greater depth and knowledge of your maps, so you can actually start to fill in some of those bits that are blurred out, and you can actually start to see where the map is incorrect. And maybe that dead end, you realise, is a massive shortcut, but you just couldn't see it. You couldn't see it based on the map that you had. So ultimately, what I see my role, especially out front, and I'm trying to figure this out for myself, by the way, and my map's far from perfect, right? I'm constantly running into roadblocks and parts of the map that I don't quite understand, but that I think is the excitement in life, is firstly giving yourself a bit of space and a bit of time and a bit of courage to go, do you know what? Maybe I'm not right. Maybe other people, other ideas will help me fill in some of the blanks. Rather than, I think too many people get stuck. This is my map of the world, this is how it operates, therefore everyone else on the planet should operate to my map. And that's what causes so much frustration, hardship, pain. A lot of the bad things that happen in the world are down to people misinterpreting their own maps and assuming that everyone else should fall in line with the reality that they see. Whereas when you give yourself a bit of space and you look at it differently, you can start to see how other people might be interpreting the same thing slightly differently, right? So that's one of the first things that you can do. And then secondly, like read, learn, take courses, show up on these lives if that helps, right? And be prepared to have your mind changed. Be prepared to have your map changed. And what I mean by that, being prepared, I think one of the greatest things in life actually is having your opinion or a belief that you held strong changed. Because very often that belief that you clung to was like a dead end. It might be a limiting belief that's been holding you back for years and years and years, but you cling to it and you're like, but that's on my map. I can see it on my map. That's a dead end for me. I'm not going down that route. Move on. And maybe you've spent forever trying to like circumnavigate that dead end and not quite ever getting to your destination, when all along, if you've been open to change and open to new ideas, you might have found that wasn't a dead end after all. It was just a shortcut. And I think that's what happens when you read a lot, when you listen to new things. Again, with that fertile mind, with a mind that's ready to be changed, right? And I think that's really important, because I think very often we cling to that map and we don't want to let anyone in to change it. Yet, ultimately, when I work one-to-one with the vast majority of people, most people are struggling a bit. They want to be happier, they want to be more fulfilled, they want to be more motivated, they want to be more energized, they want to eat in the right way, exercise in the right way, they don't want to be losing their temper, they want to be at 8 out of 10 in terms of their happiness, right? Literally everyone, I don't think there's anyone that I know that doesn't want to change something in their behavior, which is a reflection in many ways of their map. So the greatest thing you can do, I think, is be open to change and realize that your reality can be changed, right? But it's all in your mind. And when you change that map, it's just one of the most, I think, exciting things that can ever happen. Imagine for all of that time just seeing this dead end that suddenly becomes a shortcut through to the place that you want to go. Or forever having seen this area that you couldn't quite make out, there was no street names, you didn't really know what it was, and then suddenly someone helps you, a book, maybe it's a course, maybe it's a song, maybe whatever it is for you, suddenly you can see it. Isn't that beautiful? And I think one of the great adventures in life is being open to change and then trying to fill in those blanks as best you can, and then also accepting fully and totally that no matter how complete your map is, it's your map. It's not anyone else's. It's unique to you. Therefore, you do not have the monopoly of the truth, of reality. No one does. That's the exciting thing. It's just everyone else's opinion based on their inputs and their beliefs, right? And I love this stuff because it just gives you so much space and freedom to think, do you know what, I can do my best versus my maps, and also give other people a bit of time and a bit of space and a bit of distance and a bit of respect, because they too have to try and figure this stuff out for themselves. And I think one of the greatest things you can do as a friend, as a family member, as a coach or whatever, is help people find more choices that will open up more options on their map. And I think that's one of the greatest gifts. So anyway, just to summarize it up, that's just been bubbling around in my head. It very much links to NLP, and the map is not the territory. I think it's such a foundational point. It was earth moving for me when I started to figure this stuff out. I was like, oh, this is really interesting. Oh, I don't have the monopoly on reality. Maybe there's blanks in what I see. And really, I guess the topic of today's conversation is just to sort of sow that seed. It's just to get you in that mindset without anything concrete behind it, just to get you in the mindset of, do you know what? Maybe what I see is not reality. Maybe there's a few things that I can do to open up my world to new ideas and new ways of thinking. So this is what I want you to do. Try and think of a time, just a reflection, that your map has fundamentally changed. For example, my map forever said that I needed alcohol to be fun, to be successful, to have a laugh, to make new friends. Like, that was a dead end for me. It was like a dead end. It was like hard coded into my map for as long as I can remember. Then I transformed my relationship with alcohol, and that dead end became a shortcut to my best, most vibrant, energized self. And that for me is just such an amazing discovery. Right there, that's just a classic example. I did the same around food. Food for me was a dead end. You know, I was a salad dodging, meat eating. That was a dead end for me. You know, I had to circumnavigate that to try and be healthy. There was no way, I wasn't even questioning that. Then I questioned it, transformed my relationship with food, vomp, another shortcut to health and vitality. So just think, have there been those moments in your life when actually something that you held really like true, you realise wasn't actually the truth, and actually there was another way to think about it? Someone helped you broaden your map, broaden your options, and just reflect on that, because I think it's really important that you connect with it, because then it gives you a bit more time and space to think. There's so many other things that we cling to that hold us back that actually might be shortcuts to our best self. Enjoy.